call our April 22nd meeting to order, and we'll start by doing our roll call.
Okay. District 1, Supervisor Alejo. District 2, Supervisor Phillips. District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Here.
District 4, Supervisor Parker.
Here.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Yuri Anderson for Mary Adams.
City of Carmel by the Sea. City of Delray Oaks. City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Greenfield.
Here.
City of King City.
Here.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Here.
City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of Salinas.
Here.
City of San City. City of Seaside. City of Soledad. Ambag.
Here.
Caltrans District 5.
Here.
Monterey Bay Air Resource District.
Here.
Monterey Peninsula Airport District.
Here.
Monterey Salinas Transit.
On board.
City of Watsonville.
Present.
CSUMB.
That it? Did we miss anybody?
Yeah, I just joined, Supervisor. I hope I don't get any tardy slips.
Had to be the judge. Anyone else that joined us late?
I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair, I'm not showing 7 cities.
Yeah, I think we're missing hopefully 1 city. Anyone else?
Yeah, Supervisor Lopez has joined us, he said. Okay. Anyone else?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, give us a minute and we'll try to reach out to some of the city reps.
Okay, let's move and do our Pledge of Allegiance. I think they're going to put a flag on the screen. There we go. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, everyone. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
the United States of America, and to the republic which stands
one
nation
Under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
This is for all.
Thank you, everyone. While we'll figure out form, so we're going to move to public comments. If there's any public comments for any members of the public for anything not on today's agenda, and I think we'll have staff help us to determine whether anybody's on Zoom.
I have a public comment. Just a second. Let me take. This is Teresa Wright speaking. And a letter that came in from Mr. Eric Reese. I believe you have it in your packet, but I just wanted to remind everyone that it's there. And this was a letter that he wrote regarding, he's asking the board to give future consideration to the board and the staff to work with the Capital Corridor JPA, the Coast Rail Coordinating Council, and the California High Speed Rail Authority in acquiring the Union Pacific tracks for Moore Park, Emeryville. So again, I believe you have that in your packet, but I just wanted to remind you into the record that we did receive this letter.
Putting that on the record, Teresa. Any others? Okay, anybody on Zoom? Seeing none, then let's move. Well, I think we have to still establish quorum.
Let's double check our quorum, please.
Yeah, before we take on consent agenda. Thank you for your patience.
Can we have roll call again? Or quorum check again?
Well, let's just.
Perhaps we can just have the cities who were absent called.
Debbie, do you want me to do a roll call?
Why don't you just call the cities who were absent? So Carmel, Delray Oaks, Marina, Sand City, Seaside, and Soledad were all absent.
Okay, City of Carmel, City of Marina, and City of Delray Oaks. They are absent.
Okay, I'm texting everybody just to find out what's going on.
Can we begin a presentation on item number 4, Debbie? And that way, hopefully by the time we actually have to vote on this, we could.
Mr. Chair, I think not. I think what we can do, however, is jump ahead to get reports from transportation providers, because technically we don't have a meeting right now.
Okay, well, let's do that. That way we're not just here waiting. Let's go to item number 7, reports from transportation providers, and we'll start with their Caltrans Directors Report and project update. If he's on the line with us. If not, let's go to Monterey Peninsula Airport.
I thought Aileen Love was there.
Potter's here.
Oh, there we go. Now we got a city.
Supervisor Adams is here.
Supervisor Adams, Supervisor Potter. Now with the added city, now we could.
My pleasure.
D5, well represented.
All right, let's go back to item number 3, our consent agenda. Does any member want to discuss or remove any items of consent?
Star 6. Okay.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that under item 3.3.2, that there was an update to that item, and we received some late information from the Fort Ord Reuse Authority. For those of you that downloaded your packet yesterday, it's already in there, but for those of you that downloaded it beforehand, you'll note that TAMC's share is 7% of the proceeds, which means based on the $30 to $40 million bond, it'll be 2.1 million to 2.8 million. And then there's also some minor changes to the agreement. These are all edits that Forest staff did to reflect the December 13th FORA board action. So that's just a minor change that I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of in case they didn't get the revised document. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that clarification, Debbie. Anyone else want to comment or pull any items on consent agenda? See none, can I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Who was that was Ed Smith?
Robert.
Do it.
Okay, Robert.
Second by Parker.
Second by Supervisor Parker. Okay, let's do a roll call vote now.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Parker.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks. City of Gonzales. City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City. Aye. City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City. City of Seaside.
No, 3 seconds.
City of Soledad.
Here.
Okay, Chair, we do have a pass.
Alejandro, you're an aye on this matter?
Yes, I'm here. I'm not sure why it's not connecting properly.
Yeah, so he's an aye. And then Mayor Roscoe, you're an aye. I don't think they recorded your vote. I see you're on.
Mike, can you unmute Mayor Roscoe?
May I suggest a thumbs up if you don't get your sound going?
Or a hand up?
Mayor Roscoe, can you raise your hand if you're an aye on this item?
I think she's having some connection issues.
Looks like her connect out.
Okay.
She can perhaps add on later if need be via the chat function. We'll check in with her.
There.
Mr. Chair, it looks like the City of Seaside is here as well, Mayor Oglesby.
Mayor Oglesby, are you an aye on this item?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Chair, the motion passes 15-0 with 2 absents.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. Let's go to item number 4, the presentation on the Measure X second year audit results and Measure X annual report.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the rest of the board. As you know, the Measure X Oversight Committee, one of their responsibilities is to conduct an audit of the expenditure and the revenues from Measure X, and then to do an independent audit and determine how the administration of the program is going. So Kevin Dayton, who is a member of the Audit Subcommittee and the former chair of the Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee, is here to present their findings. So I will turn this report over to Kevin Dayton.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Supervisor Aleo. To put this into context, you know that in 2016, the people of Monterey County voted for Measure X, and this was the 5th effort since 1988 to try to get a tax put in place to pay for transportation. And I believe that one of the keys to getting this passed was to have a broad coalition of different groups supporting it. And many of these groups were put into a very large 20-member, 20 alternate oversight committee. And a lot of people said at the time, that's way too big for an oversight committee. It's actually my belief that this may be the best oversight committee in the entire state. It does an excellent job, very thorough job. And the report that we've produced, I think, is a continuing example of the excellence of this committee. Our point here is to avoid having anybody in Monterey County say, you know what, I told you the money would be wasted or not accounted for if we approve this Measure X. And we've been very diligent about our activities, and we want to continue to provide to the TAMC board, TAMC staff, and anyone else concerned that this money is being spent appropriately and that the vote in 2016 to approve Measure X was justified and a very good decision. You can see for the 2nd year in a row, a grid has been prepared showing the compliance of each one of the Monterey County entities. And our goal after the 1st year, you may remember that last year's grid had several local governments with red squares or yellow squares. And our goal for this particular 2nd report was to prove with our 1st report that we were going to be diligent with our duties and that local governments would be accountable if they didn't comply. And we continue to do that. And we only have one local government here. Actually, everybody complied in the end. We do have a couple of notations of oddball circumstances, and one local government was late despite repeated efforts to try to get the reports in on time. Our goal for next year is to have yes on every single one of these squares in this particular grid. And this report is going to go out to the public. And I would like to, as you go back to your own local governments and to your own constituents, please let them know that oversight for Measure X is outstanding, continues to be outstanding. Provide people with this chart if they have any questions about it. And I don't want to hear anybody in Monterey County complaining that the money is being wasted or that local governments aren't complying with the rules that voters expected when they voted for this.
Thank you, Kevin. Dan, first of all, thank you for your service. Nobody reads local documents from local governments more than Kevin Dane in Monterey County. Also to Paula Getzelman, the chair of the committee, who couldn't join us, obviously, for not having connectivity where she's at. And I think Greenfield, I think there was an issue of having a public works director, and hopefully that was the explanation why they were late in terms of being able to have staff to do that. Any questions from anyone for Kevin Dan on this report?
Chair, Scott Davis has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of curious, and if anyone can answer, Mr. Dayton can, or maybe some staff from TAMC, but when you do have an instance where you have a city who is non-compliant, what's the ramifications of the recourse from Measure X or the Oversight Committee or TAMC to ensure future compliance so that you don't have jurisdictions continually to not comply, not comply, not comply? Do they lose out on future funding opportunities, or do they, I guess worst case scenario, a legal action in court? What's the recourse?
Well, I know the answer to this, but if you don't mind, I'd like to pass it to TAMC counsel to explain what can occur. And we talk about this quite extensively in our oversight committees as we try to get everybody to comply.
Well, under Measure X, if there is non-compliance, then there is a withholding of the share that the violating community would otherwise get until there is compliance. There has been some question as to whether or not that's enough, since it may be that some cities find that the cost of doing business. And so the XTALK committee has tasked TAMC staff with looking at potential alternatives within the context of Measure X to ensure this going forward. But yes, there is a withholding of funds until there is compliance. I think it's fair to say, and then I'll hand it off to the policymakers and back to Kevin. It's not intended to be punishment per se, but more cooperation and compliance. This is a beneficial effort to get money to people for the right things. I don't know if the executive director or Kevin or anybody else wants to say more.
I can say, as far as the committee perspective is concerned, we talk a lot about what power the TAMC board has to, and whether a recommendation should be made. Positions vary on this. My general feeling is I like what the TAMC staff does, and they pretty much bend over backwards and really make the effort to give the local governments every chance to comply. Because when this report goes out, this level of public accountability, we want to avoid having anybody look bad or humiliated. But at some point, you've got to say, you know what, the deadline is passed. You know, it's unfair for other local governments for us to extend the break too long. But you know, our goal is ultimately to see everybody yes on this, not to punish people. So that is the perspective overall of the committee.
Hey, Kevin, have they turned in their report? Please, it's late, but have they submitted it?
Yes, everybody has submitted.
But Greenfield too, but it was late, you're saying?
That's right, and extra pushing to try to get them in, warning them that this would occur in a public document. It didn't work out.
Thank you. Any other board members?
I do want to speak on behalf of the City of Greenfield. I do know that I was on Paul Wood, our city manager, about this, but he did inform me that there was it was going to be late because of short staffing, and even today we don't have a public works director that can work on this full time. So I apologize to the TAMC board, but I was aware that I was going to be late.
Thank you, council member. Other board members? Okay. Do we need a motion to receive the report, the audit results and the annual report? Do I have a motion?
Motion moved.
Moved by Councilman Scott Davis, second by?
I'll second Supervisor Adams.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Adams. Let's do a roll call vote on this.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye. And I want to acknowledge Bruce Delgado did join us too already.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Parker.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Delray Oaks. City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina.
Yes.
City of Monterey.
Yes.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas. City of Salinas.
Yes.
City of San City. City of Seaside. City of Seaside.
Nobody's there from Seaside. All right, I'll see you there.
Ian's here. Are you muted, Ian?
He put his thumbs up.
Got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Soledad.
aye.
The City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes 15-0 with 2 absence.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks to our Oversight Committee again for their good work. Going to item number 5, I'll receive a presentation on agency activities related to the shelter-in-place orders to contain COVID-19 transmission and estimated impacts to Measure X revenue. I know we're all going through a hard time. City of Monterey had a really late meeting last night. Not easy times in local government.
Good morning, Chair Alejo and members of the board. This is Todd Muck, the Deputy Executive Director, and I'll be providing this report. In order to comply with the shelter-in-place order, all transportation agency staff have been working remotely since March 16th, with the exception of essential activities in the office, primarily related to our finances. We've been able to utilize remote access pretty successfully. This was helped by adoption of cloud-based storage for our documents, where we could all access all of our information via the internet. As you know, your last board meeting was held virtually, and it was one of the first local meetings that was held virtually. And TAMC staff has been able to assist other organizations to test out virtual online meetings and promote the ability to do that for all of our local jurisdictions. Due to the shelter-in-place order, sales taxes, sales of many taxable goods have declined. And as a result, the initial estimates that have been provided by HDL, our tax consultant, is that Measure X sales tax revenues will decline below prior projections across at least the next 3 fiscal years. That would be the current year plus the next 2. The projected result is a 22.7% decline from fiscal year 18-19 to 19-20. In 2021, revenues are expected to show a modest increase of 3.1%. and the following year, growth of 7.1% over the prior year. Despite that growth, these annual revenues will still be below the original projections for all 3 years. Prior to Measure X being adopted by voters in November 2016, the revenues for Measure X were conservatively estimated to be $20 million a year. Actual annual revenues have been higher, with the 2018-19 receipts, which was the second full year of Measure X receipts, totaling $30.9 million. Following those estimated percentage changes that I mentioned earlier, Measure X revenues will drop to $23.4 million in fiscal year 1920, rise to 24.7 in 2021, and then increase to 26.4 million in 21-22. There are charts that were attached to the staff report that include these forecasts by HDL, and they also show additional data by industry groups. If you happen to have downloaded this chart prior to Friday, there has been a slight change from what was posted before Friday versus what's currently in the agenda packet. And that change reflects $1.37 million that was shifted from 1920 to 2021 to reflect the Governor Newsom's allowing businesses to delay in their returning of sales tax. So that $1.4 million does show up in 2021, and then 21-22 it remains the same. As you would assume, statewide fuel tax revenue, the primary source of funding for state transportation programs, has fallen. This drop in revenues could delay the agency's ability to fund and deliver projects. The extent of the financial impact to SB1 funding programs and the State Transportation Improvement Program are not yet known. SB1 competitive programs are from a combination of fund sources, including sales tax, excise tax, and vehicle registration fees. So we don't know yet what the impacts will be on all these different revenue sources. At this time, there hasn't been any discussion to delays of projects that are nearing allocation. The next Measure X project that's slated to receive state funds is the Imgen Widening project, and it will. There's no indication that it won't go forward as expected. Overall, our agency staff has been continuing to deliver our various programs. We've all shifted to efforts to reflect the stay-at-home order. Our staff working on the Go 8-3 Run program has been providing samples for telecommuting policies to local government agencies and businesses. It's also changed its messaging on social media platforms to reflect the change in the work environment. And we're also coordinating with our local partners in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura County, where we'll be providing a series of webinars over the next month for best practices for working from home. Construction jobs, as you know, have to be deemed essential to move forward. And our Salinas Rail project is going to continue with stage 1 and then halt before it proceeds into stage 2. And Christina Watson will discuss that more when she presents on the next item. Our Safe Route to School program is also shifting because of the children not going to school. Some of our work's going to have to be delayed. The physical work at the individual school sites for the Salinas Safe Route to School program and the Every Child Active Transportation Program grant. But we are shifting to work with our partners at Ecology Action and the Health Department to provide material and activities that school children can do from home, and then also encourage learning about safe ways to ride and bike, because those activities are good exercise and kids can still be doing them, so they should be learning how to do them safely, and that's something that we can help the schools to continue to incorporate into their curriculum. Agency staff has been working closely with project sponsors and state regulatory agencies to address problems or potential project delays due to the COVID-19 crisis. There are external risks to some of our project schedules. One of the primary ones is that the State Route 156 Castro Boulevard interchange is needing state legislation to allow us to mitigate potential impacts to the Santa Cruz long-toed salamander. And Senator Monning has carried legislation, SB 1231, that does will allow us to mitigate those impacts. And the senator has indicated his strong support for that bill by making that one of his 2 bills that he's going to continue to carry forward. That allows the project to stay on schedule and be ready for construction in 2022. Other parts of our programs also need to move forward while this COVID-19 situation. And Caltrans has implemented social distancing protocols that allows their staff to work on some of the background efforts for our projects, like continuing to work on the biological impacts and cultural resource impacts for the State Route 68 Salinas to Monterey corridor project that's been going on and will go on for the next couple of years. With appropriate social distancing protocols, Caltrans staff can continue to go out in the field as needed for those projects. We had kicked off a major study for the US 101 South of Salinas project, and we were right in the middle of kicking off a broad public outreach effort. So we are working on shifting to do as much online and virtual meetings as we're going to be able to with that study. But there will be parts of that that we'll have to delay, especially when our efforts to reach out to traditionally hard to reach populations where face-to-face meetings are most effective. The project also is requiring traffic counts and traffic data collection that obviously we need to put on hold until traffic conditions are come back to normal. So we're expecting that to pick up in the fall. The California Transportation Commission has relaxed some of its timely use of funds requirements, and our projects will need to take advantage of that in certain circumstances. That will allow some delays in requesting funding allocations, and it will also give jurisdictions more time to go from getting an award of funds to the required deadline to get them under contract. And that will allow those projects to continue and not be delayed any further. The California Transportation Commission has scheduled a special meeting for next Wednesday, the 29th, where they're going to be considering delays to the deadlines for SB1 reporting and grant programs. For the SB1 Local Street and Roads funding program, the deadline for local jurisdiction reporting is being delayed from May 1st to July 15th. For SB1 competitive programs, these are major programs that will be applying for the 156 Castro Boulevard interchange. They're being delayed slightly from a 10 to 20 day period where they will now be due in June, July, and August based on the 3 different programs. But they're not delaying the dates that they're scheduled to adopt the program. So they're going to continue to target to adopt programs in early December. The final competitive program, the active transportation program, is going to see the biggest delay, and they're delaying application deadlines for most of the projects within the active transportation program from June 15th to September 15th. With this program, they're also going to delay the adoption of projects that are awarded funds from December 2020 to March 2021. And the reason for this additional delay is because many cities apply for these funds. They often partner with the health department and other agencies that are actively working on COVID-19 responses. And the indication from various partners across the state is that the additional time was needed for the active transportation program. While the Measure X monies are forecast to be significantly less over the next 3 years, our existing program fund balance along with new revenue will allow us to stay on track for our program of projects to meet our local match requirements over the next 4 years. That said, it's really the loss of gas tax revenue and what impact that might have to the state transportation improvement program in the future. And if they delay any of the SB1 competitive grants, that might impact our projects. We've been monitoring the federal side for any type of stimulus or relief. And the first federal program, the CARES Act, included some funds for the Federal Transit Administration that will be passed through by formula, including to Monterey Salinas Transit. It includes funds for the Federal Aviation Administration for their airport improvement program, and it includes funds for Amtrak, but it didn't include any funds for local or state infrastructure. The second act that I believe was passed yesterday did not include any funds either, but there is talk about the third act potential for a future that will include stimulus funds. So we are tracking that closely. And then finally, the impact on TAMC's operating budget is currently being assessed, and we will be reporting on that in May when we bring our final agency budget to the board. With that, thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Todd. Do you have any questions for Todd on his presentation? Board member?
I do, Chair. This is Bruce Delgado.
Yes, Mr. Delgado.
A very quick question. I didn't hear the sentence exactly, and I understand whatever the answer is. I'm totally okay with it. But the question is, what did you say about Imjin Parkway widening? Will that project be delayed or not? I just didn't quite hear it exactly.
No, we're not expecting it to be delayed by any impacts from the COVID-19. The delay that's potentially happening with that project is getting the final right-of-way releases from a few of the jurisdictions that own some of the right-of-way, including UC Santa Cruz and the county, and I believe MST's come into agreement with the city. And the delay primarily just because the slowdown in some of the efficiencies of people working from home. The conditions of the California Transportation Commission that allowed some additional time to get a funding allocation will let this project move forward based on when those right-of-ways get resolved and move forward. And so there might be a month or two delay, but not a significant impact.
Okay, I appreciate what everyone is doing. I just wanted to understand. Thank you very much.
Okay, other questions by board members?
Chair, Supervisor Phillips has his hand raised.
Okay, Supervisor Phillips.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we keep working with Senator Monning to keep the pressure on to get the approval for 156 to keep it moving forward, because that's a critical project for all of us. So.
And he has agreed this to be one of his two priority legislations to carry forward in this session.
All right, thank you, Todd.
Yeah, I believe that the legislature is going to scale back on a lot of their bills, and the bills have to be related to COVID-19. And I think Senator Monty is trying to make sure that his bill kind of fits that argument. And anybody else?
Chair, Board Member Kerr has her hand raised.
Yes.
Good morning. I'm sorry I was a little late, so forgive me if you've already discussed this. We have the 4-tag trail. And I'm wondering if there's any potential delay in either funding or planning on that. Thank you.
Right now, there's no delay for the project. We're continuing to work with the jurisdictions to adopt the mitigated monitoring plans and the master agreement. And we're moving forward with the request for an allocation for the funding for final design. From the California Transportation Commission. And in, I believe, next month or either May or June, staff will bring to the board a request to proceed with hiring a consultant for the final design work.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Chair, Board Member Smith has his hand raised.
Yes, Councilmember Smith.
Yes. Todd, when you first started off, you were talking about the governor's action on suspending revocation of collected sales tax. I believe you said it was anticipated to be 1.4 million, and you were referring to the chart. I didn't have the chart in front of me. So if you could point us back to that location in the chart, because I need to share this with some others.
It's really just the delay in reimbursement of sales tax is really just how it cash flows into our receipt of Measure X funds. So it's not really identified in the chart other than knowing that if you saw the first version versus the current version, you'll notice that 1.4 million shifted from the first year to the second year.
Okay.
Director Smith, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I want to point out that that can be a substantial loss. We talked about it last night at our council meeting, and impacts that we all are feeling. That doesn't help any of our cash flow in terms of as we expect revenue to come in. So I think that that's something worthy of watching, and also as we have conversations with our assemblyman and Senate, we need to make sure that that does not grow to favor the states and hurt the cities, because that shuts off potential revenue going forward from what sales tax we may have. And we don't want to see that number grow and erode or all of a sudden start to morph into something else, because all of the funds that it's impacted, Measure X, Measure S, Measure P, and a variety of cities rely on the sales tax. So just want to point that out, that it can be a big thing if it continues to build.
And I just want to note, the staff at HDL has been very prompt at providing information to us, and we'll be bringing back updates either in June or August, depending on when new actual data comes back from the state.
Thank you, Todd.
Certainly a big issue for cities across California. Other board questions from other board members? Okay, questions from the public?
Yes.
Let's go to Kevin Dayton. Thank you.
Yes, I saw the report and heard the comments from Todd. I was wondering if TAMC is going to examine why the stage 2 of the Monterey County Salinas Rail Extension Project is not deemed essential. I know there's a lot of ambiguity out there about what's essential and what's not. You probably know that school districts such as Monterey Peninsula Unified, Alisal Union School District, Salinas Union High School District, and also Hartmel Community College have deemed certain projects they do essential. That Monterey County Rail Extension Project is supposed to be a big piece of connectivity to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's also a economic vitality project and part of the downtown vibrancy plan. And I encourage the TAMC board to look at that and say, why can't we pass a resolution declaring this particular project stage 2 to be essential? Thank you.
Does staff want to answer that now? Because I know that was part of the presentation on the next item.
So we had looked at where it would be appropriate to move forward with the project or stop the project. And stage 1 has approximately probably 2 to 3 weeks worth of work right now to finish before stage 2 will be ready to start. And the rationale was stage 1, when it's completed, all of the impacts on the local streets on Market and Lincoln are all taken care of. So the stage 2 work is all internal and doesn't have any impact on the traveling public or reduce any access to the train station or any other businesses that utilize the site. So that was our rationale for picking that as a spot to be consistent with the shelter-in-place requirements as they were laid out by the county and the state. Debbie, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, this was what staff was able to take action on according to the health directive without having a board action. I think that as the project moves forward and as we have a better sense as to what May is looking like, if the board wants to weigh in and take action, we could bring it in May. But I think from a legal perspective, it'll be hard to argue that it's essential because there's no exposed areas that people could trip on or that could be impacted by weather. There's no reduced access. There's no public roads. And so although we hate to have to delay anything on this project, we felt like that we couldn't justify it under the health order, and we did speak extensively with our council about this. We are sort of hoping maybe things can get relaxed a little bit in May so that there's not really much of a gap.
Thank you for those responses. Any other members of the public? Going back to the board, any final questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, I think this was just to receive a presentation. So no action is needed on this item. So thank you, Todd, for giving us that update. We're now going to move to item number 6, the Salinas Rail Extension Kickstart Project Final Design.
Yes, good morning, Chair Alejo, board members. This is Christina Watson. I'm Principal Transportation Planner at TAMC, and I'm going to be presenting an update on the Salinas Rail Kickstart Project, the Monterey County Rail Extension Project. And I will address package 1 a little bit, and the focus of today's action is on packages 2 and 3. So I'll go into some detail on what those are. Thank you, Mike, for using the presentation. So this is the outline of what I'll be addressing today. We'll talk about what the Rail Kickstart project is, what the operating plan looks like, and the status of package 1. Packages 2 and 3 are currently at 75% design, and so we want to move forward to final design on those packages to prepare for construction of packages 2 and 3. So I'll talk about who the stakeholders are for those packages and the contracts, deliverables, and timelines that is subject to your action today. So the next slide shows a map of all of the rail services in Northern California. We have the red line going from Sacramento to San Jose is the Capital Corridor line. The green line is the Caltrain line between San Francisco and San Jose with 3 trains daily down to Gilroy. The gold line is the Altamont Corridor Express from San Jose to the Central Valley, and the blue is the San Joaquin's trains from Oakland to the Central Valley. So the proposed scenario for service for this project is an extension of Caltrain trains, the trains that currently go to Gilroy, to extend those south from Gilroy to Salinas. So on the next slide, we get a close-up view of the corridor. And we are looking at the initial service of being 2 round trips on that corridor. And it is commuter-friendly schedule, weekdays only. So the trains would be leaving Salinas early in the morning, heading up to Silicon Valley, and then coming back in the evening. And it's a continuation of existing trains that go all the way to San Francisco. So a passenger could stay on the train and head all the way to San Francisco, or disembark at San Jose and transfer to any of the other rail corridors that go out of San Jose and travel to the East Bay or beyond. The Salinas Rail Kickstart project has been divided into 3 packages for the purposes of construction. And package 1 is improvements at the Salinas train station, specifically the SR 183 West Market Street, improvements and Lincoln Avenue extension, as well as other station side improvements. Package 2 is the layover facility for the trains, which is just west or northwest of the train station. And then package 3 is the connection of tracks to the Gilroy Caltrain station in Santa Clara County. So we have an overview aerial map of Salinas here, showing the packages 1 and 2, package 1 being the parking and road improvements around the Salinas station area. And you can see Lincoln Avenue there in red, which is the extension of Lincoln Avenue into the station, is going to be providing safe signalized access to the station, which didn't previously exist. And then package 2 is the layover facility. So the next slide shows what we're talking about earlier under the previous item was the staging of construction at Salinas for package 1. The construction team is currently working on construction of stage 1, and they're getting close to completion of that. So there is now the availability of an extension of Lincoln Avenue. It's very visible. It hasn't been paved yet, but they're starting paving soon. And once they wrap that up, then we're going to be pausing the construction schedule for stage 2 until we have a new executive order from the county or action by this board in May, potentially pursuant to our last discussion. So this shows what once it's final, what it will look like. So you can see the parking areas will be improved. The Lincoln Avenue will be extended with a signalized intersection. And then in the blue, stage 2 is going to be construction of a bus transfer facility there next to the First Mayor's House and the Railroad Express building, as well as road improvements on Railroad Avenue. This is an aerial photograph from the top of the Gateway Apartments building. We were doing progression photographs, so I thought this one shows what the site looked like in February 2019. After the structure demolition took place, but before we were able to initiate construction. So you can see the rail train station there in the background there, and the traffic lights on the left-hand side. That is the Lincoln Avenue road as it was in February 2019. And then this picture shows what it looked like in February of 2020. So a year later, and this is the progress that they've made. You can see all the sidewalks and curb and gutter have been constructed, are in place. We are also building the stormwater retention areas for bio retention areas pursuant to our stormwater control plan. And the station is visible there, and this will give direct signalized access to the train station. So this will help with the visibility of the train station and help further the goals of the Salinas Vibrancy Plan. And there's a progression of photos here. So the next one shows the main part of the new parking lot there with the station. And then the last one shows the view towards the First Mayor's House and the mountains there. And you can see all of the lights have gone in, the parking lot lighting has gone in, and it follows the design the City of Salinas wanted to see out there, consistent with the downtown vibrancy plan. So this is the timeline for package 1. We have obviously completed environmental, property acquisition, engineering design, and building demolition. Utility relocations are primarily complete. The City of Salinas relocated the sanitary sewer and storm drain lines last year in 2019. And we were working also with all the other utility providers to do relatively minor utility relocations in 2019. We are still coordinating with Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, on a few remaining utility relocations that may be able to take place in the near future. But we are still moving forward with finalizing construction and paving of the whole project this year. And that's our goal. Obviously, if things continue and continue to be delayed, that timeline could get pushed out into 2021, but we are optimistic that we think that construction can be completed of both stages 1 and 2 this year. Okay, moving on to packages 2 and 3 and where we're at on those with 75% plans. So package 2 in Salinas is the train layover facility where the trains can stay in between their nighttime of arrivals to Salinas and their morning departures. And there will also be an associated station track, a commuter platform, and other auxiliary uses around the layover facility for the crews. In package 3, we're looking at improvements at Gilroy Station in order to connect the station track to the main line. And I'll explain both of those more when we look at the images for those plans. And this is just another reminder, just geographically where package 2 is located. And this is the design, 75% plan as designed with the concept of, at the time, of having Capital Corridor serve the station. So now that we're back to working with Caltrain again for the operations to this station, we will have some changes to the Salinas layover facility design in order to accommodate the Caltrain standards that are somewhat different from the Capital Corridor standards. But the changes should be relatively minor. We are still planning for 6 tracks in the layover facility to accommodate future operations growth. So beyond the 2 trains that is envisioned in the near-term operating scenario. The tracks are off the mainline tracks. So the black on the top of this design is the existing track work that's out there today. The blue and the gray are what we are proposing to install. So there would be connecting tracks, getting the trains off the main line and then into the station and to the new proposed platform to the right there. And then on the bottom of the map, you can see some auxiliary uses such as crew parking at a crew base building and a storage shed. And this map shows the 75% plan for package 3 at Gilroy, connecting the station track to the main line. The black lines are the existing tracks that are out there now. Gilroy is the end of the line for Caltrain, so their station track does not connect to the mainline track, so it is not currently feasible for any through trains such as the Amtrak Coast Starlight that goes through there today. They couldn't stop there if they wanted to. So this is making it possible for the trains to be able to continue south from Gilroy, and also any future trains might want to be stopping at the Gilroy station, they'll be able to use that track as well. And this is also part of the future high-speed rail project, is they are looking at having a station on the other side of those tracks in Gilroy. So there will be an opportunity for a cross-platform transfer between our trains, the Caltrains, any other trains that might be there, and the high-speed train in the future. And we are coordinating with the High-Speed Rail Authority and the City of Gilroy to make sure that those work together and are coordinated, and we're not doing anything that might get in the way of each other. All right, this is a short list of the stakeholders on this project, sort of the highlights. We are obviously working with the City of Salinas on improvements that happen in their downtown. We're working with the City of Gilroy. Monterey County, obviously, is a big partner in this, as well as Santa Clara County. Caltrans and the California State Transportation Agency are incredibly important in terms of supporting this project and helping us move forward on several levels, especially with regards to funding. Monterey Salinas Transit is a key partner to make sure that we have the bus transfer potential and option at the City of Salinas, especially. Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, we're working with them to connect at Gilroy. And then obviously Peninsula Joint Powers Board, the Caltrain service, is a key partner on this to develop an agreement to operate their service down to Salinas is something that we're working on every day. And then Union Pacific Railroad, they own the tracks. So we need to have an operate agreement with them, a track rights agreement, and we're going to be working in the next year or so on those agreements and to get the capacity model run done that needs to support those agreements. I apologize to anyone I might have left off this list, but we're working with a lot of people. All right, so this is sort of the main contracted deliverables that is the subject of the action for you today. The main point of this contract is to produce the final plans, to update the 75% plans and bring it to final plan and bring it to be ready to go out to bid for construction. We have several optional tasks in this contract based on our past experience working on package one, especially. We know that we have several things that might come up during the process of design, and instead of going through the process of amending the contract multiple times, we were hoping to be proactive and have optional tasks that will only be authorized if they are needed. So the main thing on that list is railroad modeling, which is something that Union Pacific typically wants to have done in-house, but they have had a lot of downsizing. So the consultants recommended having this as an optional task because they do have this expertise. So if the Union Pacific folks find that it's possible to let them help out with this, that's something that we wanted to make sure was in the contract. And then the last one on that list is construction support. So design support during construction is something we will definitely want the design team to be able to do. It would be operationalized only upon allocation of funds for construction. This is our timeline for this contract. Again, environmental has been complete. The right-of-way acquisition is ongoing, but is likely to be complete in 2021, we anticipate. Engineering design is the subject of this contract to hopefully complete design by 2022, pending the issues related to resolving an operations agreement with both Caltrain and Union Pacific. And then construction of both packages 2 and 3 are anticipated to take about a year, approximately, so that the service might be able to start in 2023. And of course, this is always, as always, an ambitious schedule dependent on funding being there. So this is our action today that we're asking you to consider: to approve and authorize our executive director to execute the contract with HDR Engineering, subject to approval by agency counsel and audits and investigations, in an amount not to exceed $3,189,130 to provide final design services for the Salinas Rail Kickstart project for the 3-year period ending June 30th, 2023. We're asking you to approve the use of state funds already budgeted to this project, and to authorize the executive director to take such other further actions as may be necessary to fulfill the intent of the contract. That is my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Let's go to questions or comments by board members first. Anyone? Yes. Director Hewitt.
Chair, I have a comment.
Yes, thank you for the.
Okay, we'll go to Labar second. Councilmember Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Christina, for the report and for the work that you and others have done on this. I just have a question for clarification. One of the options that you mentioned was railroad modeling. Could you explain a little bit what's involved in that?
Absolutely. So Union Pacific, as the owner of the tracks, requires what they call a capacity analysis for the tracks to show that there is room for additional passenger service. And since the coastline between Gilroy and Salinas is a rather underutilized track in their network, we're anticipating that they will find that there is capacity for additional passenger rail service. But what that capacity model also identifies is any improvements to the tracks, to those 36 or so miles of tracks between Gilroy and Salinas that may be required to support the addition of 2 passenger round trips. And that would then become part of our agreement with Union Pacific.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, I do, I like the idea of having these approved in advance as contingencies instead of having to come back to the board every time that something comes up like that. I think that's a good strategy. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Board Director LeBert, King City.
Thank you. Christina, that was the question I was going to ask too, so thank you for the answer. And so really appreciate staff's work on keeping this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Other board directors. Okay, let's go to members of the public. Any comments, questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I am speaking now on behalf of Salinas City Center Improvement Association and Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce. And first, all respect to the county health officer for, putting in policies in place to try to control the spread of the virus and the pandemic. And that's a very noble pursuit and a difficult thing. As we go along, I know among many industries, the construction industry has developed a set of protocols and guidelines that would allow safety from infection on job sites. And these guidelines have been adopted in places such as San Francisco, Santa Monica, Long Beach Unified School District. There's also a one that is being spread locally by Monterey Bay area construction companies. One thing about the construction industry is it's an unsafe business in itself, so they're used to safety protocols. And as we go along here, we don't know for sure if the health order is going to be changed regarding construction. But I'll mention here that ultimately all of you here are elected as representatives of the people, and you should have a chance to tell the county health officer, if there are guidelines and protocols in place for construction, let's see if we can adopt those so some of these projects can move forward. I note about this particular project, for decades we've been hearing about the climate emergency, and this project is ultimately about people having alternatives to driving in cars. It fits in with the downtown vibrancy plan and the effort that's going on in downtown Salinas to convert old buildings into residential units and do new development there so that people can commute and walk back and forth. And I think you should plan that if the health order hasn't been changed by mid-May, it would be worth declaring it essential. I don't know what the original time was to actually start any sort of work on this, but definitely I think you should look at this and plan for it. And just in general, start looking at the economic activity of the region and saying, if there's ways that we can set up reasonable, valid criteria for work, should we ask the county health officer to adopt them? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dayan. And what I can't say on that is that the health officer has been open to meeting with different stakeholders, and he has met with some of the stakeholders in the construction industry to hear their concerns and also look at their protocols that they have put together. So he had acknowledged just a couple of days ago that he had met with them. Other members of the public? Okay, going back, we'll take it to the board directors. Any other final questions or comments?
Board member has her hand.
Yes. Go ahead, please. Who was that?
Hi, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second, but let's take these comments on. I guess the motion, let's make the motion. The motion would be to approve items number 2, 3, and 4 as recommended by staff. There's been a motion by who?
Director LaBarre.
LaBarre, second by?
Davis.
Potter.
Mayor
Look
Potter?
at Davis. Doesn't matter.
Yes, okay. Now there was an additional comment by board director on the motion.
Hi, this is Allison again. I have a long-term question. What is involved in expanding the number of daily trips?
So I think essentially what is involved is agreements with the rail operators. It is the subject of another study that we are doing called the Network Integration Study. And I'll be reporting on that at the next Rail Policy Committee of the status of the Network Integration Study that is looking at all of the universe of options for an increase in rail service in the Monterey Bay region in the Central Coast largely. And so we are looking at, for example, another inner city train trip in addition to the Amtrak Coast Starlight that could connect us to between the Bay Area all the way down to Los Angeles on the coastline. We're looking at potentially service between Santa Cruz and Monterey on the branch lines, and additional then service between Salinas and the Silicon Valley as well. So all of those are under consideration as part of the network integration study, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that separately if you'd like a briefing.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much for the presentation and all your work.
Thank you, Director Kerr. Anyone else? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Phillips.
Aye.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
District 4, Supervisor Parker.
Aye.
District 5, Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Aye.
City of Del Rey Oaks.
Aye.
City of Gonzales.
Aye.
City of Greenfield.
Aye.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Del Rey, City of Marina.
Aye.
City of Monterey.
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove.
Aye.
City of Salinas.
Aye.
City of Sand City. City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes 16-0. One absent.
Mr. Chair, I believe you're mute.
Chair, the motion passed 16-0 with one absent.
My bad. Okay, thank you. Going to item number 7, reports from transportation providers, and we'll go to Caltrans first. Okay, if Caltrans is not with us, let's go to...
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I just want to reflect our commitment during the COVID-19 crisis to continue to provide essential services. As I think I mentioned last month, maintenance and construction activity, excuse me, is carrying on at the best level that we can. Our office staff are at we've got about a 90% level of teleworking, and we're keeping progress going on other projects as our staff for the project delivery activities and planning activities. The project list you have in your packet is up to date. I would just like to note that the work at the safety roadside rest area that's going on now is going to keep that those locations closed until June 1st. And then I wanted to mention that under Senate Bill 743, that's the state law that requires a shift in measuring traffic impacts from level of service to vehicle miles traveled. We have some new documents available for review and comment for the implementation of that law. As you know, that goes into effect starting July 1st. There are 2 technical comments that we're seeking, technical reports and guidance that we're requesting feedback on now, and that is a technical analysis framework and a transportation analysis guide for determining significance on CEQA projects. These are available on the Caltrans website dedicated to SB 743. If that isn't immediately familiar to you, I'm happy to pass that along separately by email to you. We want to make sure that everybody has adequate time to review, and digest, and ask questions about this as we work toward the July 1st time period. These These two guidance documents are available now for comment through June 15th. And any questions?
Any questions, anybody? See none. Thank you very much for the report. We're going to the Monterey Peninsula Airport.
Bill Sabo here from the Airport District, and thank you for allowing us to present. Needless to say, the airport's been significantly impacted. Our employments are down 90%. And given that most of, about 70% of our revenue that supports the airport is dependent on those airline activities and activities, commercial aviation activities at the airport, that's been significantly impacted, and we're under a substantial amount of financial analysis as to how we're going to deal with things going forward. We've already done some modest amount of reduction in staff and partial work programs. We did have the fortunate occurrence of getting under the CARE Act, getting a $12.6 million allocation from the FAA to replace some of our lost revenue here. And we're now trying to figure out how we allocate that. We anticipate, though, that we'll be able to retain most of our staff and go forward. As far as airport operations go, all the airlines, with the exception of Allegiant, are maintaining their presence in Monterey. So United and American and Alaska are all flying flights, and but they have reduced, in some cases, they've reduced their daily frequency. United is flying to Denver, and there's this number of cancellations when they don't have anybody on board. They're canceling, and American as well. Our flights to Los Angeles are continuing, but if there are no passenger bookings scheduled, I think that they're canceling some of the flights. So you can still go anywhere you want out of Monterey, but at a reduced frequency. So going forward, we see that United and American, which are our two main carriers along with Alaska, will have not planned on withdrawing from Monterey service. But I think the airlines are still in a state of flux as to determine exactly where they allocate their aircraft to. They've got, all of the air carriers have airplanes parked somewhere. So there's a lot of flux, and this time next month, we'll have a much better picture of the air service out of Monterey. And this is not unique to Monterey. San Jose and San Francisco have also incurred the same kind of changes in their flight scheduling, and we are still the source of, if you want to travel, Monterey is still the good source. So there's more to come on this. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Sorry, Bill, before the shelter-in-place order kicked in, the airport had announced new flights to Seattle and I think to John Wayne Airport. How have those new lines been impacted?
Those flights were out in the future. I don't have a definitive answer for you regarding the new operations, particularly to Seattle. We're anticipating that they will continue to implement on that schedule. There's, in my personal opinion, they'll probably start up because the impact on all of the airlines going forward is rather significant. And so I think they will continue that flight, which is a godsend for Monterey, maybe possibly delayed, and we'll have more information later, which I'll provide to you and the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions from
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Sabo, if I might. Bill, do you know if the airlines are working on something to make sure that the recirculation of air includes some way to filter it, or do something that might not allow the virus to circulate among all the passengers?
That's a very good question, Director Parker. Having been an airline pilot for a number of years, I can share with you that air is not recirculated in the airplane. There's a continuous flow of air coming from the outside and going out exhausted. So it's not recirculated within the airplane. And so I think that's kind of from an infection standpoint, I think that's the least of our worries. It's continuous refreshed, if that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
I didn't know that either. That's good to know. Other questions from the board? If not, thank you very much, Bill. We'll go to now MST. Carl?
Thank you, Chair. Everyone can hear me, I hope?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, well, MST's been very busy and not very busy on our buses, but very busy on the staff side. We've seen a 75% drop in ridership on our fixed route, about a 2/3 drop in ridership on our MST rides program. That's a good thing. To some regard, that means people are staying home. It's bad in that most of our employees who are riding were hospitality employees who are no longer working. We are closely monitoring and using TAMC's consultants to help us figure out the financial impact to MST. We're predicting about a 20% drop in revenue for the coming year. We did receive CARES Act funding that will help us bridge that gap. We'll be working with our board to determine, though, what is going to be the appropriate amount of service to be operating in this new era, and what will it take to bring people back into our service. With so many people unemployed and the cost of driving and owning and operating a vehicle being the second highest cost, only to the cost of your housing, we do think there will be a large influx of people coming back once businesses open up, as hospitality workers come back. We know for a fact that we're going to have a huge spike in our MST rides program when the shelter-in-place order is lifted, as people start on our rides program start returning to their medical appointments. So for those reasons, we don't want to let our drivers go. We have not furloughed any drivers. About 20%, slightly more, are taking advantage of various shelter-in-place leave for childcare, for age-related or pre-existing underlying condition-related issues. So with those many people out, I am using every resource I have to provide the limited amount of services that we offer. We have implemented social distancing on board our buses, with only 10 persons allowed on a bus. That includes the driver, or 2 to 4 people allowed on a smaller vehicle, including the driver. We have buses and employees staged at strategic areas so that if we have an overflow situation, the driver will inform passengers waiting at a stop that another bus will be coming along shortly, and we can spread the loads out that way. We have implemented a variety of strategies to keep people away from our drivers, rear door boarding only. We've eliminated collection of fares so that people do not interact with our drivers. We have part of the vehicle taped off so people can't get within 6 feet of the driver unless it's someone with a wheelchair or other mobility aid that needs the assistance of the driver. The driver will still assist them taking precautions. We have a variety of signage on board our buses, on the exteriors of our buses, spreading the word about staying at home, maintaining social distancing, and washing your hands. MST was well prepared for this in that there was a hepatitis A outbreak several years ago. within our county. And at that time, we started extensive cleaning of our buses, issuing gloves, masks, and disinfectant to our drivers, and putting in protocols to clean our facilities. We didn't stop that after the hepatitis outbreak ended, that those practices continued. So we had plenty of stock on hand, although we have burned through that and we're struggling just like everyone else to maintain our supplies of personal protective equipment. To keep our employees busy and to be of assistance to the community, we've started several projects working with the Meals on Wheels Salinas Valley and Salvation Army. To date, we have, by the end of today, we'll have delivered over 1,500 meals throughout the community with drivers who were in the middle of a training program. With the closure of the DMV, we were not able to get our some drivers who we were training licensed, so we're having them drive sedans around delivering meals. We've delivered 1,500 meals to date by the end of the day. We are using Wi-Fi enabled vehicles, working with the Monterey County Office of Education to deliver Wi-Fi hotspots to rural areas that lack access to the internet so that the students there can participate in online learning. Last Friday, we implemented the first of those in the City of Greenfield, and we're asking other school districts to coordinate through the Monterey County Office of Education, and they'll work with us to deploy those resources. We're working with the county, supplying drivers and vehicles to move homeless later this week to sheltering facilities. We are donating vehicles to the Veterans Transition Center so that their own drivers can help move homeless folks as well. And just a whole host of other things. You know, we're working with state government as well to assist us in suspending various rules and regulations to help us focus on providing the services our communities need rather than doing the paper chase for Sacramento right now and for the Federal Transit Administration. So we're continuing to work real hard every day to serve the community and do what we can during these trying times. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you for your team for partnering with the food banks. Certainly very much appreciated. Any questions from the board for MST? Comments?
Okay. I have a comment.
Yes.
Chair. I just want to say thank you to the MST for all that they're doing. And on Friday last week, they did come into the City of Greenfield to provide hotspots for the kids in our community so that they can access the internet to access their classes, since we're all going on distance learning. So thank you so much for all the work that you guys are doing. It's really appreciated.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay, and if there's no other comments, Carl, is that an interior of a bus for your virtual background?
That is.
All right, that.
I'm not sure what's more sad, the fact that I chose this as my virtual background or that I actually had this photo on my camera to upload as a virtual background.
I thought
such
you
a geek.
Sitting in a bus.
Okay.
I'm sitting at home with like 90% of my employees right now. We're all working from home.
All right. We're going to the Air Resources District.
Thank you, Chair Alejo. Let me first just say happy Earth Day to everyone. Also, as I was reminded by my assistant this morning, today is also Administrative Professionals Day. So make sure you recognize those folks for the work they're doing. Just a few notes. MBARD is now accepting applications for our AB 2766 program. That's our public grant program for vehicle emission reductions. We've concentrated on traffic signal synchronization and roundabouts in the past. This year, we're trying to get out to medium duty fleets. So if you want to green up your fleet, please look online for an application. Applications are due by July 24th. Also, we're teaming up with the Monterey Bay Community Power on a program to get 6 new electric school buses out to members in our jurisdiction. This is probably going to be around a $3 million project, and we hope to finalize that agreement very shortly, and we'll be making an announcement with Community Power. And speaking of school buses, one of our Alisal school districts just received a Bluebird school bus, and it was Bluebird's 100th electric school bus that they've manufactured. So things are moving right along with trying to green up our school bus fleets, and we're really, really proud of what's happening there. And just lastly, I'll say as we're moving towards zero emission vehicles, you know, stop and take a look around, because this is, with the air quality we're experiencing right now, this is sort of what we could experience down the road if we remove a significant portion of our transportation emissions. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stedman. Any questions for the Air Resources District? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We're gonna now move to item number 8, any reports on meetings attended by board members at Transportation Agency expense? Ms. Hale, were there any?
No, I don't think anybody's traveling at this point.
Great. Okay, Executive Director's report, number 9.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I want to report that TAMC staff has been active on Zoom, going out to a couple of city councils, and we've got a calendar through June now to take the approval of the FORTAG master agreement and environmental mitigations. And I just want to say thank you to the City of Marina, who was first to approve that agreement. Actually, Monterey was first before we had adopted it. But thank you both to the City of Monterey and the City of Marina for actions. Monterey just approved it last night. It is a large challenge coordinating with 7 different attorneys and 7 or maybe 8 different jurisdictions. So I really appreciate all of your support when we come to your council meeting. We will be going next to the city of Seaside. We're hoping to work through some issues with your council, and I think we'll do that, and then go to your council the first week of May. Then after that, we'll be going to the regional parks. We're coordinating on the side with UCSC, and there's somebody else I'm forgetting. And then the last but not least, the County of Monterey. Our goal is to finish this all up in early June, so that we can get our allocation and move on to the next phase in June. So thank you, everybody. It really helps to have friendly supporters when we go and present to your council. Second of all, you know, these days when we're all kind of trapped in our house, somehow the mail has become much more exciting. And I'm excited to report that the TAMC annual report should be getting mailed out next week. So do keep an eye out for that. There's really not anything that I think has changed from it. It'll report on our current construction and our plans for the future, as well as the audit report from the Measure X committee that you saw today. So got some great new pictures in there, and I think it'll look really nice. It always helps during this time to get some good news, and good news that we gotten this month on our 156 Castroville Boulevard project is that out of all the projects that were submitted for consideration, we are one of 3 projects that Caltrans is submitting for a federal build grant. That was a nice surprise. We had not actually solicited them for that, but we have made a huge pitch to Caltrans to support this for SB1 funding. And so really appreciate this. It's a long shot still, but having the weight of Caltrans behind us on this is really big. And our staff team is working with their staff team to get a draft going, and then the submittal will be due in mid-May. So very excited about that. As was noted by Mr. Stedman, it is Earth Day today, and one of the things that TAMC's been doing to help promote Earth Day and sustainability is our coordination with the Blue Zones Project. And we had a check-in with them yesterday. We are coordinating with them on safe routes to school and hopefully some level of distance learning for kids, since everybody's out and about right now. We're also very much encouraging communities to think about doing what the City of Oakland and other communities around the world have done, which is to recognize that we're not driving as much, but we're walking a lot more. And if there are neighborhood streets that you can close down, or if there's a neighborhood that really wants to close down a street to everything except for residential traffic, it's an opportunity to improve our ability to social distance as well as support pedestrian safety. So we'll be looking into opportunities specifically in the Salinas area in coordination with their public works staff. Also, with regards to sustainability, our travel demand management team on the Central Coast is going to be conducting an employer survey to see what kind of resources that we can provide to them through the webinars that were mentioned earlier. And we'll send that survey out to you all because you all are employers as well. And that way, if you have the time and the inclination, you can have your city managers or appropriate personnel fill that out. And then finally, I just want to recognize our administrative professionals today, our board clerk, Eloise Rodriguez, our administrative assistant, Maria Montiel, and our clerk and assistant accounting clerk, Lynn Terry. They've all been working from home and handling things remotely, and we really appreciate all their efforts. So thank you. That's all that I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's go. Board directors, any questions for Debbie? Okay. Members of the public? Seeing none. Thank you, Debbie, for your executive director's report. Let's go to we got a closed session item, but let's do any announcements or comments from board members on matters they wish to put on future transportation agency agendas. Seeing none, now we're going to go to closed session. Do we have an announcement by Kate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Pursuant to Government Code Section 45956.9D1, the board will confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, namely TAMC versus Rodney Carl Newbert and Susan Greco Newbert, court case number 20 CV 000457, TAMC versus the Bailey Family Limited Partnership, court case number 20 CV 000455, and TAMC versus Joyce M. Selby and Cheryl Latimer, court case number 20 CV 000456. All right.
Thank you, legal counsel. Now let's go to if there's any comments from the public on closed session items. See none? Okay, now we're going to convene into closed session. So our staff's gonna only keep the board members on and necessary staff, and then we will disconnect the members of the public.
That's correct. Thank you, Chair. I will move everybody into the closed session.
Thank you, and we'll
Hi, Rita.
A lot of pain going around. All
yeah, there we go.
Various forms of it. Some are through layoffs,
Rita,
some
we're
are
back in
furlough,
open
some
session.
are through illness.
Oh.
Are we all muted?
Supervisor, okay. Alejo, yes.
It's going off and on. We're now reconvening to open session, and we're going to have an announcement made by our legal counsel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, we met in closed session, but there is no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you for that report out. Okay, if there's nothing more, then we could adjourn.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we adjourn, I wonder if our DJ there, Scott Davis, could give us a round of applause for our administrative professionals, since it's Administrative Professional Day.
Absolutely.
No.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Thank you, DJ Davis.
You're welcome.
Everybody, be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you at our next TAMC meeting. Thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.